do you have a couple of things? Number one, do you have the differences in the height and weight of the males and the females? Do you have that?
I actually, it's in the document. I didn't feel it I didn't feel it was pertinent to put it in this presentation.
And just for the audience here, can you explain in your own words what your stepwise regression was? Just to kind of give them, I mean, some of them might think no, but just.
Okay, stepwise regression, I have these predictor variables that I got from the fitness test. I put them into a statistical equation that tried to determine which of the two accurately predicted the outcome variables. And my outcome variables were the physiological and perceptual responses.
So it could be one or the other, or both, or none?
Correct. And the criteria for what was included into this model, based on stepwise definitions, is does my variable fall below a probability of 0.05? 0.05 of the predictor meets the criteria and then is included in stepwise by definition.
All right, what about your variance? You know, like your push-ups in males and females, like your total is 21.6, you've got a plus or minus 17.
Right.
You know, that's a pretty big variance.
It is a big variance.
And, you know, when you put them all together, and even if you look at them separately, there's still a large variance in the males and females.
That's true. And what that tells me is I've got a nice snapshot of push-up ability at FAU. I've got people that are doing 1 and 2 push-ups, and people that did up to 60 and 70 push-ups, like Mr. Delance-Cortez.
If you have a small variance, it's going to be tougher to find a significance when you do regression. Now, the more heterogeneous your group is, the more likely you're going to find significance. The more homogeneous, the smaller the variability, less likely.
So are you not interested in measuring the oxygen consumption change before and after?
That wasn't the focus of the thesis, so no.
Right, because you are talking about fitness, right? The fitness.
Right.
And of course, when you talk about fitness, which is how we respond to oxygen consumption, the change of oxygen consumption. So, and also you mentioned one study they used 80 minutes compression, right?
Right.
They found that there was a significant difference in the oxygen consumption.
Correct.
So what is how much difference before and after 80 minutes of compression?
How much difference?
The oxygen consumption. Because that study showed there's a significant difference in oxygen
I don't have the value
consumption, right?
immediately at hand. I'd have
So
to
I'm
get
just
back to you.
wondering how much oxygen consumption changed.
It's a good question. I don't have the value immediately. It's a good question, and I read it, but I don't have an immediate answer.
You're using the recovery heart rate as an indirect measure of their VO2. And basically, it's a standard test that's been used for decades as a way to estimate aerobic fitness. So it's an indirect method that correlates with
Yeah, I'm just wondering 10 minutes how much oxygen consumption can.
It's a good point. I think you raise a good point. I think logistically, we elected not to do that.
There
When
was
you look at
I
heart rate
agree with you.
response here, basically in this group, I think you can assume that it's not you're looking at a heart rate of, an average heart rate of 126. So you're probably looking at a modest increase in VO2. 126 is probably not even, it's probably equivalent to a brisk walk.
Let me just insert one thing. The reason that I did heart rate as an assessment for essentially both is because I knew that if I had a relatively easy measure of aerobic ability, I was able to get my sample size really large. Because doing submaximal oxygen consumption, setting up the Rudolph valve, it can be cumbersome. To do 40, it can be a bit more time consuming and laborious. That was part of the reason why I chose not to do direct, that assessment.
Not laborious, but it's literally, it's a time issue. Logistics are
And I think
hampers
measuring
this
VO2,
study.
I'd have to believe, would interfere with their ability to perform the CPR.
Right, that would have, the days would have to have
I think
been
that's a good
structured.
point, yeah.
How much time between the VO2 test and the CPR
Well,
test.
I mean, from a mechanical perspective, they got the mouthpiece and all that stuff, and you're asking
Yeah,
them
that's true.
to do all that, so it's difficult.
Probably won't be possible with the spit back and everything, finally,
Yeah, it's difficult.
So what's your take-home message for this?
Get fit. Fitness is extending in more areas, in areas that people really have never thought. And I'm trying to extend it to CPR. Why not?
So do you know, like the professional ones that you mentioned before, the professional people that actually work for American Red Cross, do you know if it's included in their training, like
It's
physical fitness, muscle fitness?
I volunteer at Red Cross, so I know the answer to that. It's not the focus, it's not a push. If somebody asks us, we tell them that yes, it is an equivalent, but yes, you should include rescue breaths into it, because that's how CPR has been taught, is currently taught, and I'm hopefully of the kind that will change the way that it is taught. But yeah, it's approved, it's acceptable, it's fine to teach. American Red Cross, can you give it 2 thumbs up?
So I think before you start class, you gotta tell them, get down, give me 20.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
Well, my students, I made them do like 7 or 8 minutes of CPR, chest compression only CPR, before they got certified in my class. I mean, I had when I did GA here, I made my students compress for 7 or 8 minutes every single time. I mean, I made them sweat.
Do you think that maybe the difference of their perception of trying to stay fit, to be able to do
I think
that?
people have that question already answered. They know what they want to do. Huffing and puffing during CPR maybe only will discourage them, because they hate that feeling of burning in the shoulders and huffing and puffing. People don't like exercise. I think we all know that.
Well, while you have several graduate students in here, any information you want to impart to them?
If you choose to do a thesis, get your pen and pad
Be
out.
honest, go ahead and say it.
Simplicity. Simplicity. Take a simple approach. There's nothing wrong with asking a simple question and answering it effectively. It adds to literature. That's my advice. Simplicity.
So how long did it take you to complete the thesis?
Well, I started writing the day after the fall of 2009 term. So I started mid-December. I started writing, and here we are, 10 months from the time I first started writing till the day of the defense. But my push, though, I think my push, and maybe Dr. Whitehurst can either agree or disagree, but I think my push from proposal to defense has got to be among the fastest. I had my final first draft written 3 weeks after I obtained IRB approval. I completed my data collection in 10 days straight. Literally 10 days. I was here on the weekends. 10 days straight I did data collection, because I had a simple question, had a large sample size, and I answered it.
We've had a couple of other students in the past that have done that.
Oh, always putting me in my
I'm
place.
sorry. No, remember Priscilla? Goodwin?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, so yes, it can be done, and as he's saying, you know, if you answer something, you can progress to that extent.
And
But you have to be
Adam's
focused.
work was good from the beginning too. His writing is good, and he picks up the material and the concepts quickly. And I'd like to take a moment to thank Dr. Z for his guidance with regards to the regression analysis. He has expertise in that I certainly don't have, and so it was instrumental in getting.
But I would agree. I think Adam is his ability to, his focus and his ability to execute, I think, is one of the best I've seen.
Thank you.
Can I add one question? So do females have a difficult time,
Yes.
a more difficult time?
I was doing, yeah. I was.
So you should carefully select your rescuer.
Or hang around people that are fit.
Yeah, but even a fit female would, relatively speaking, has more difficulty performing this than a fit male.
Yeah.
So a large, lean, muscular male would be your ideal rescuer.
Yeah. Even I've seen, let me just add one point to that. He makes a good point. Even a largely overweight male, guys that are probably 30% body fat, they have it, because all they do is use that body weight and they compress. I've seen it all the time. Overweight males, it's not that difficult for them to do CPR.
So if the form is good, and you have substantial mass one way or another, you're in good shape.
Exactly.
So small women, not good. In some respects. How to qualify that. Okay.
Where did you record your lactate levels from?
We had a lactate analyzer.
Fingerprint?
Yeah, capillary finger stick, capillary, microcapillary tubes. Just pricked it, sterilized it with alcohol, pricked it, collected it, and just immediately ran it. Anybody else?
I believe the correct term is a mixed venous sample.
Mixed venous sample. Mixed venous sample. All right, thank you. Anybody? Flavia?
Okay, so the committee